All right, so I've got the gas off there. As Michael was talking, I was fiddling around with the tools here, so I think I got most of the stuff set up. So we're gonna take the burner out here. It's on a door and on a hinge. And you notice the gas is on this side. So we wanna tilt the burner so it's gonna open up basically left to right. All right, so in order to do that, there's a little Phillips head screw that usually holds this little piece of the side cabinet onto the top of the boiler. I've already removed that little Phillips head screw. And now I can just lift this little fella up. Just lift it up. I always lift up and just pull it out. What I don't want to do, just like I talked about with the Vitocrossal boilers, is just don't grab it and pull it. Because you've got these little tabs here, and if you're just kind of pulling those out, you'll flex the tabs. And the way they're made, they have weak spots. There's just the way that they're made just to slide in. That you do that over and over again, one's going to pop, and then of course the door's a little bit loose. And so now we can open this up. I have 4 bolts to deal with here. On here, these are 19 mil. So a little ratchet's always handy for these guys. And we can basically take these out. So back them out. Putting them back in, sometimes because the door's a bit heavy on one side with the gas valve and the piping, you may have to lift up the door a little bit to kind of get it in and get that bolt in. So we'll have a look to see how well I do when I get that to that point. Right. We've got a couple of plugs here. The 3A and the 15A, we've got to take those out. On the side of our control, there's a couple of plugs here. They're all numbered. And in this case, the numbers are also on the spot directly beside where they'll plug into. So I got a 53 here. I just look for the 53 slot, and I can plug that right in. I don't even have to take a picture of that. It's right there. Right? And then I have to pull out the 41 plug. The communication between your boiler control and this combustion manager, this combustion control, is via this little 145 plug. So we've got it open, and basically what we're looking at here, you're going to be checking things like the ignition electrodes on this boiler. You can see a little bit of debris on the burner mesh here. What we'd be looking for basically is we can vacuum that burner mesh off and basically get that debris out there. It's not, what I usually do is check this pipe here. So this pipe shows up almost in this exact type of condition. If it starts getting like almost tobacco stain look to it, really dark and really hard to see in, I know that we've got contaminated combustion air. So I know that I've got a lot of debris that I have to deal with as far as the burner side goes. So that might go to the point of pulling the fan off, taking that burner tube right out and washing it, and then basically hitting with compressed air. This one here looks like it's in pretty good shape. We could probably get away with doing a vacuum of the surface here a little bit just to get some of that debris out. I would basically at this point, we can put a little bit of chemical in there. I can rinse that out with some water. And if we had a little brush or something like that, we could do a little bit of brushing with a nylon brush, but there's really not much that we have to hit in there. Might as well. So it's just this little screw here, a little bolt on, little nut, which the ionization electrode hooks onto. We remove that. There's a little washer there that you got to be careful. If you're just inspecting, it could plop out on you. And I can remove the electrode from this side. So there's the ionization electrode there. You can see what it looked like when it came out of the package, nice and smooth. I've got the other side out here. If you're going to replace, you might replace the whole thing. We're good to have a spare. So I put the gasket on first because obviously it's going to have to seal up against that opening. And then we'll get the ignition electrode in place. It's a little less warped, so it's a little easier for me to basically get it into a spot there. It catches some insulation there, so just free the insulation up. Now we have fresh gaskets. Fire up. All right. Down here, What we're looking for basically is any evidence around this breech where you see that you might have that gasket where the flue gas escaped. So we can back it off there, and then we can pull this bottom piece off. And if you have a look inside of there, it's basically, this is kind of a catch, right, for stuff that's sitting inside the boiler. You can see it's kind of, I don't know, maybe 30% full there or something. So 4 years of operation without service, it's still in pretty good shape. I think we got some flies or something in there, actually. We had a wasp nest, I think, and something going on in there. So now Steve's done a nice job. I notice now we've got a nice clean P-trap. Just a little bit of coverage. And it's just going to basically act like, I say that, it's going to act like essentially just like you would use any type of surface cleaner in your house. You want it to basically do a little bit of bubbling there and loosen up that debris. So now when I go in there with my brush or whatever, it's going to come off nice and easy. But remember, whenever I'm using any type of chemical, it doesn't matter if it's citric acid or anything, you want to make sure you flush that stuff out. That's pretty good. This is 4 years without cleaning it, but some benefits, combustion air, right? A big benefit, it's not fouled up. One of the things you want to look out for would be negative pressure in your buildings. So if I have a big exhaust fan or something, right, in a facility, and after that blower fires, and that exhaust fan comes in and creates a negative pressure in this area, the venting will now become a ventilation duct, and it'll literally pull that flue gas back through, and it'll come out through your combustion air duct. That's why I like to inspect this. I knew coming in here, seeing what this duct looked like, that we had good combustion air, right? Maybe a little bit of dust or whatever, but nothing that's going to be problematic for the boiler. One more test I'm going to do. I'm going to put the P-track back in, and I'm going to put a bit more water in here and just watch it flush out. That tells me that there's no issues with that. Because if we fire the burner and we got a blockage in there, you're going to see it. You're going to hear the burner literally start to back pressure. Right? It'll start to pulse. Excellent. Thank you. And that's just sucking right down in there. So that's all right, so we got this fella serviced. We're going to put the burner back in place. A couple things you want to remember here, obviously, is you got cables here. We want to make sure that we don't get in front of the cables, the door's not closing on the cables. As well, we've got this door insulation. And when I'm closing the door up, I don't want to have this insulation stuck between the door and, of course, the pressure vessel. What will happen in that case is you'll get a little bit of smoke basically because this stuff will heat up and it's just got a nasty smell to it. It'll calm down after a bit of time, but all right, so there's our little choke. So how this little fella's going to work is when we fire the boiler up here, these boilers will go through a phase. You can kind of count the phases in the combustion manager here. Starts off at 0, basically in standby. We give it a call for heat. There's a bunch of different self-checks it makes. It does some valve proving. It checks the fan speed. When it goes into pre-ignition, what's going to happen is this little damper, it starts off at 0 here, which is fully open, and then we're going to choke it off to 20%, basically. And that's just for just a few seconds during the whole combustion phase. And what it's actually doing is we are putting in a certain amount of gas, and we're going to choke the air off, and it gives us what we call a golden light off, a more stable ignition, more reliable, softer ignition. And then this will open right back up again, and you'll see 6 on the screen here, which is a stabilization period. So the burner is going through the flame signal and checking to make sure that that flame signal is stable. Once you get past 6, you go to 7. The burner is now in modulation, so it's looking after this, whatever that temperature that the cascade is. Well, the cascade control is looking for that board to fire to. So let's put the gas back on. I'll put the plugs back in here, and then we'll we'll have a look at what's going on. All right, if we had some leak detector, some soap, always, good idea to soak those joints. So anytime we take gas off, it's a good idea basically to make sure that we've got these things nice and secure. That's good. You've got a manual reset low gas pressure switch here, right? So it's always going to be in the safety position right now because we dropped the gas out, we opened up the connection. So we need to reset that. So we've got, again, all of the plugs are numbered. Really simple to plug those back in. Ready? All right, so basically boiler control on the top here is communicating with the cascade system. So one of these three boiler controls is what we call the cascade, so it's looking after the whole management of the system. And these would be just what we call lag boilers. So it's basically reacting to whatever that cascade is looking for. So our arrow's coming through here, going through this little diagnostics. But basically, I'm just feeling around with that screwdriver, and I can feel it drop into the flathead. And just give her basically a turn. That's all you have to do. You put our gauge on there now. Safety. So the safety right now is open. So the low gas pressure switch reacted. Notice the power's off on the combustion control. And because we've got no gas right now. Right? So I put this on, open it back up, hit the reset on the low gas pressure switch, and we see our gas pressure. Right. I'm going to force this burner onto operation for a couple things. As the burner's firing, I can check my gas pressure. Remember, static, right? I can write this down in my manual. I've got basically in this particular area, it's 7 inches right now of gas pressure on this system. It's static, so that's what I've got to work with. And if I want to manually control the burner, it's a 2-step function. So first one is this override button. And override on these controls basically is like a limit test. If I hit the switch, the burner's going to basically go into its ignition phase. And it's going to bounce off its operating limit. That's all it's going to do all day long, as long as I have that switch down. When I take the cover and close it, that little indentation right there actually flicks that switch back to its normal position. In case somebody inadvertently left that on. But I'm going to do basically two things here. You see the emission test is on the screen here right now. I can see my boiler temperature. And the boiler's going through its pre-purge. And you'll see in a second here when we hit 4, this little damper is going to choke off. And we're going to light off. Probably the longest part of the whole process is 3 because it goes to high and low on the RPM of the fan. So it's purging out any residual gases in the combustion chamber before it lights again. So that's lit. And basically we're in stabilization right now. So it's looking for a flame signal. I'll show you where to find that in a second. But I'm going to check the combustion right now. So it's lit, it's stabilizing. Once I see 7 on the screen there, I can do this. Hold these 2 buttons down. There's my ignition point at 60. If I drop this all the way down, I can take my time a little bit. I'm dropping it, I manually control the firing of the burner right now. So P at 0 is low fire, but the reality is between 0 and 20, the fan RPM doesn't change. So anywhere between 20 and 0 is low fire on these burners. They have a 5-to-1 turn down, so you got 20% is low fire, always up to 100% would be high fire, right? So you'll know when it lights on this level here, because this won't be 0 anymore, right? It's going to be a number. So there, 11.2, 11.7, 12.5, 12.6. Really good ionization. Brand new electrodes, I expect that to be. You don't want that to drop down below 3. If you start dropping down below 3, you're going to get faults. Put it back in normal operation. I have to hold those 2 buttons down, S and down arrow key. I see the 7, it's back in automatic operation. Flick the switch on the top there. I put my components back together here. And the burner's off right now. It's doing a post purge.